Hip hop artist Nicki Minaj joined Charlie Kirk's widow's grief tour at Turning Point USA's conference. Now, before we get to what she had to say, I just want to review the weekend of events. Kirk was assassinated earlier this year on a college campus in Utah. And at this conference, Turning Point USA made a recreation of the tent or recreation of the tent where Charlie Kirk was murdered so people can take selfies in it. It's weird. Anyway, widow Erica Kirk endorsed Vice President J.D. Vance should he run for president in 2028. A weird thing to do before he says he's going to run. Vance closed out the conference after Nicki Minaj's comments. It seems like in many ways, and I don't mean to sound cynical or to frame her as purely cynical, but it does seem that the assassination of Charlie Kirk is being used to position J.D. Vance to be president, which is their right to do, except J.D. Vance isn't that popular among MAGA voters. That's a whole other conversation. Anyway, so on Sunday, Nicki Minaj sits down for a Q&A session with Erica Kirk. And throughout the interview, Nicki, to me, leaned into MAGA talking points, but she also mocked California Democratic governor and likely future presidential candidate Gavin Newsom. She also offered praise for the Trump administration, high praise for the Trump administration, and urged young Americans to look to President Trump and Vice President Vance as role models. Then she just did some weird shit. When she was talking about Donald Trump and she started talking about how handsome he is, weird. Then when she praised J.D. Vance, she referred to him as an assassin. Now, it's a weird word to use in this context, but it's even weirder when you remember that she was talking to a woman whose husband was assassinated. It was a weird choice of words. I'm not saying anything. I'm not assigning any negative intention to her. I'm just saying it was a slip. Could be Freudian slip. I don't know, but it was a slip, and it was an unfortunate one. And then Nicki at some point started talking about Black women. She had a message for Black women. She talked about beauty. She talked about what it meant to big up and to love on, Black women and girls, but to kind of frame it as if people are saying something that they're not saying. In other words, she said, I don't have to put down little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls in order to make brown girls feel special, Black and brown girls feel special. And it's like, no one ever said you did, Nicki. No one ever thought that you should do that. And no one has ever accused you of doing that. Like, this all lives matter shit is not necessary here. No one thinks that calling Black girls beautiful is an affront to white girls. I shouldn't say no one, but that's not the dominant position. In fact, I would argue there's never been a moment in American history where blonde hair, blue-eyed white girls felt that their beauty was being questioned or challenged or not prioritized or not centered, maybe even worshipped. We shout out and big up Black girls because they need to be shouted out and big up. We want the world to know that they're beautiful. We want them to know that they're beautiful. But we're not running around saying you're beautiful and white girls aren't. That's a stupid straw man that the right uses because whenever Blackness gets talked about or centered, they feel like it's coming at the expense of their own well-being. And so that's white people shit to work through, not ours. Anyway, in 2018, I just want to remind y'all. Actually, let me take a step back. I don't know. Nicki Minaj, I don't know her immigration status at all. But she was not born in the US, and she came to the country at 5 years old as an undocumented immigrant. I would think that that would mean something. And in 2018, she lambasted Trump's policies, specifically the policies that ripped children from their parents while going through the immigration process. So, how are you now championing somebody who has been maybe the biggest enemy ever to immigrants? She's been quiet on that front since Trump got back in office. And in 2018, by the way, she deleted that IG post where she was criticizing Donald Trump. So there's clearly something at play here. Now, some people say she's fishing for a pardon for her husband, Kenneth Petty, who was convicted of a sex offense in 1995. He was sentenced to a year of house arrest in 2022 after he and Nikki moved to California because he failed to register as a sex offender. Uh, Now, the failure to register as a sex offender, I believe, is a federal crime. And that, I guess, could get pardoned. But if I understand it, Kenneth Petty's charges are not federal charges or state charges. So the president can't do nothing with that anyway. And again, I'm not saying that Kenneth Petty's innocent or guilty. I don't know the case. I don't know the story. I'm not assuming anything about him other than that he has a conviction. And people are saying that she might be doing it for those reasons. I don't think that's what she's doing. I'll tell you what I do think in a minute. Um, Nicki Minaj could also be looking for a pardon for her brother, by the way, Jelani Mirage, who was sentenced to 25 years in prison for repeatedly raping his 11-year-old stepdaughter in his home in Long Island. Um, these are all possibilities. I don't know what her angle is. Um, what I know is that MAGA is welcoming Nicki Minaj with open arms as she sort of attaches herself to Charlie Kirk's legacy. Um, so many things. One, when he was alive, Charlie Kirk didn't have great things to say about Nicki. He said she was not a good influence. In fact, she was a bad influence on black and brown girls. So it's interesting to see the kind of funeral, post crisis analysis and attribution and appreciation is being expressed. But that's another story for another time. But it's a fascinating one. That's it. Um, let me say this: Nicki Minaj has every right to have whatever politics she has. I take Nicki seriously as a person, as um, a thinker, as a citizen, as all of those things. So I don't say, "Oh, Nicki Minaj has been duped," or "She's being used," or "She's." All those things are condescending, and they underestimate and understate how smart and thoughtful Nicki Minaj is about her own choices. I believe Nicki's being sincere, and I believe she believes everything she's saying. I don't think she's hustling us. I also believe that Nicki Minaj is 100% wrong on these issues. She's saying things that are factually incorrect, and she's also saying things that just are ideologically off base to me. So some of it is a matter of fact, so we can debate, and then other things are feelings and opinions. And I don't think that mine are more important than anybody else's. What I do know, though, is there's a danger in normalizing Donald Trump and his administration. There's a danger in delivering your fan base to MAGA. I remember a couple weeks ago when I said that she was echoing MAGA talking points and she was aligning herself with Trump, Nicki Minaj, I'm talking about. A lot of people said, "Oh, you're making that up. She didn't do that. She's just supporting Nigeria. She's just supporting Christians. She's just speaking out on her issue. This isn't a political thing." And everything's a political thing, but this is particularly a political thing. What are we talking about? Um, there are also people who are hearing Nicki Minaj talk about trans folk, who are hearing her talk about how boys should be. All these kind of conversations about masculinity and manhood on the one hand, but also explicit criticisms of pro-LGBT politicians like Gavin Newsom, and specifically pro-trans politicians like Gavin Newsom, talking about it on her Twitter feed has made it very clear that Nicki Minaj isn't there. And so for me, she's doing a couple of things that I don't like. One, she's doing harm verbally and discursively, rhetorically to these communities. She's also alienating a significant part of her fan base. I mean, how can you be a Nicki Minaj fan and not appreciate her genius, not appreciate her talent, not appreciate her gifts, but also appreciate how she has such a diverse team, how she has such a diverse fan base, and she has such a diverse consumer base? Well, you start shrinking that thing down when you start attacking members of the LGBTQ community, even subtly, or just criticizing them, even subtly. I think it's a professional suicide to do that. If your squad is the Barbs, shout out to the Barbs. I don't know if you would want to alienate members of the LGBTQ community. It seems you shouldn't do it anyway because it's the wrong thing to do. But even just personally and tactically, you should have different feelings about it. But that's just my take.